Thank you very much. As I said, I'm Andrea Morisi. I'm a estate planning attorney in Manassas. I've almost 75% of my work is doing estate planning. The rest of the time is on other things such as failure to plan, not having documents. And now some people can't have documents because of their capacity, not having capacity, shall we say, like disabled children when they become 18. We have to move on with them with guardianship or conservatorship. Guardianship is over the person, so making medical decisions, where they live, etc. But and then conservatorship being managing money. In the cases of these children, we generally don't have a lot of money unless they're inheriting something. But the failure to plan could also put older adults in that situation. So as Derrick said when he began this conversation, I was going to tell you like what you must have. And surprisingly, what you must have is a financial power of attorney first and a medical power of attorney. Some people call those advanced directives, living wills. These are all the same names, but essentially in the terms of a healthcare, you're empowering somebody to make medical decisions for you in the event that you're unable to do so. So it could be because you didn't have capacity because of a stroke or dementia or something horrific has happened to you, or it could be the case where you're not able to communicate because you're on a ventilator because of whatever's going on, pneumonia, or we used to be doing COVID. Thank God we're not having those emergencies again. But there are times when you might think, well, I'm always going to be able to say what I want. And of course, if you can, you do. But if you can't, we need somebody to help you with that. So an advanced medical directive, medical power of attorney, a living will, again, these are all very synonymous terms, is very helpful in the medical arena. What I'm talking about in terms of like a power of attorney and these advanced medical healthcare directives, those are your living documents. Those are the documents you need when you're alive. So if it turns out something happens and now you cannot manage your financial affairs, a financial power of attorney is very helpful. Another document that can be helpful during the time you're alive is a trust. And I'll come back and talk a bit more about a trust. But so we've got financial, we've got medical, we've got a trust that can go when you're alive, and then when you've passed, it's still in effect. And we have a will. So you brought me here to talk to you about a will. And a will can, so what a will is it's a document that tells your family, your friends, somebody like your executor, what you want done with your estate, your stuff, your money, your house, your stuff, your cars, your phones, your computers, clothing, etc. Whatever you have, your big screen TV, stuff. Now, a will is very helpful in conveying how you want that stuff to go. It's actually telling us two things: who you want to do it and where you want it to go. All right. So when we do a will, that's what we get into. Who's your family? What's the circumstances of your situation? And what do you got? You know, and we talk to you in plain language, like, what do you got in the bank? What do you got in investments? What have you got in the driveway? And I don't mean asphalt or tar. I mean, what kind of vehicles you're driving. And then we'll talk to you about your house. Do you have retirement accounts? Do you have life insurance? And how do you want all this to go to your family, your friends, your charities, your alma mater, however, whatever you want it to go. So we're getting in there. It's almost a psychology. You know, you're going to therapy. And when we're talking to you about this stuff. So, and then who's going to do it? Now that person needs to be trustworthy. All right, because they're going to be acting on your behalf. You're no longer here to tell us, hey, this is what I want done. So it's got to be in this document. And does the person who's doing that know what you want done? Do they know that you have a child with a disability and that child should not be inheriting from your estate because that's going to disqualify them from their benefits? We need to structure those gifts. Do they know that you have a child that has a drug problem? Okay, is giving them money a death sentence? Is that going to be gone in a short period of time? Do you have a blended family? Sometimes when in the blended family, you think you're all really close. Well, it's the husband and wife are together. But then when one of them leave us, and usually, let's just get this out of the way. I don't say people die. I say you get attacked by a zombie. All right. So when you get attacked by a zombie and you no longer have your spouse got attacked by the zombie, are the children of your spouse still going to stay connected to you? You may think they are, but maybe not. You never know. But we need to plan that and address that. And how much are you going to recognize them in that? Charities, do you have your favorite charity? But is your favorite charity the lady down the street who collects cats? Right? She's not really a big charity because once she stops collecting cats, that charity's gone. So do you have a more established one like the Prince William County Animal Shelter or Animal Rescue, or a more established rescue organization? We ask those kind of things because heaven forbid if you said, I want to give, my money to, Mary, the lady who rescues cats down the street, and we don't know who Mary is because she's moved or she's no longer rescuing cats, where do we go with that money? What if you have a child you don't want to give money to? They've been estranged from you, or you've been very generous with them throughout your life, and now you're saying, this is my time to give to my other children because they've always taken from me, and now it's my time to give to the others. We need to know that. We need to include that in the whole picture of what you're doing. So unfortunately, we do pry into your personal affairs. We try to do it sensitively, but also we need to know these things, because if we don't address things, cracks happen and things fall through the cracks, and it may not have been your intention for something to have fallen through the cracks. And what I'm telling you doesn't just apply in your will. If we're doing a trust, we need the same information. We need the same kind of structure. We're going to be putting that in both. So it's good to know all this background and for you to sort of examine, how you want to give things. If you don't know where your child is, if you have not been in touch with them for 35 years, you might want to not include them in your will, because are we going to find them? What are we going to do with that money? If we can't find somebody, we either have to make a decision to file a petition to have them declared dead, or send their money to the state of Virginia. And the remainder of your family might feel that's unfair, when brother hasn't been around for 35 years. Is he living in the woods in West Virginia, or is he living, in Hawaii, pooping it up, and fine without his family? So again, we try to examine a great deal about what's going on. Not everybody has these issues. There's a one-off, on some of these, but we have a large number of blended families, and we look at that. I've had situations that I never thought I'd have. I had a guy who, got prosecuted by the federal government for having chained himself to nuclear warheads in Tennessee or something, when he was a kid. Bad, thought he was, being an activist, and well, they came and caught up with him years later, and he had a very substantial judgment against him. And so the parents said, we're going to make the difficult decision to not give him any of our money, because we don't want any of our money going to the federal government for this. So, you know what? We're giving our money to our daughters, and they could give it to him under the table, or, when he needs help, but we're not naming him our will. We're just going to disinherit him. And he knows that's not from lack of love. He knows that, he's living a very thin life, meaning financially thin, so the government doesn't come after his money. But we may have other circumstances too, similar to that. Even if you have somebody in prison, I manage money for people in prison. that got money through inheritances and they can't get it because they're in prison. So I got to wait till they get out. So it's all kind of things that come up. All right. So we've gone through, we've talked to you. We've got like, who are you? What's your legal name? Where do you live? What do you got for money? Where are your things? What are your intentions? Who are your family members? And then we go through the apocalypse. Okay. Remember, I had those zombies came, and now they are really marauding around. And now we're losing people left and right. So, what happens if you're giving all of your estate to this child and then that child predeceases you? It happens. We don't expect it. We think life is going to be a certain trajectory, and it turns out not to be the case. So, what do we do in that event when that child's no longer with us? Do you have grandchildren from that child? Or do you want to go, who's the next one? Again, we go all the way to like, you ain't got no children, you haven't got any grandchildren. You want to go to your nieces and nephews. Do you want it to go to, or your siblings? You tell us. And again, if it's all gonna fall apart, we ain't got nobody, then do you have your favorite charity? Your church, your school, whatever, or your pet rescue, whatever it is you want, we'll do that. So then we'll make sure and help you make sure we can get it where you want it to go. So we go through this catharsis, I can't talk today at 6:30. Anyway, we go through the whole process of what happens when that person's gone. And it might be, we're going to go through each one because this one has kids, but that one doesn't, because that one has dogs. They don't have children. They got their dog. We're not leaving money to grand dogs. We're leaving it to, other people. Sometimes you might want to do something creative. If I got two kids and one doesn't have any children and the other one does, and I lose the one without children, instead of it all going to my other child, maybe I give it to my grandchildren. So whatever structure appeals to you, we'll do that. Okay. And then we got to ask who's going to do this. Okay. So now oftentimes that's a family member. All right. And everybody thinks, well, my husband's going to do that or my wife's going to do that. Well, you know what? One of you is going to die. So they're not going to be able to do it for the surviving one. So we really need a backup. So I don't really, and again, in your financial power of attorney, I got people come in with a power of attorney and it says husband's doing it for wife and wife is doing it for husband, and there's no backup. And to me, you ain't got no power of attorney because you guys are going down the road together. Whatever illnesses are affecting one could be affecting the other, and you don't have anybody to help both of you. So you really need the backup. The spouse is easy. It's the backup that's hard. Also, spouses, that's another thing too. I got a lot of people who do the, I don't know what to call it, the self-help divorce, which is let's just go live in two different houses. And when we die, when one of us dies, you can get our Social Security, which is that's a good deal, right? You're still married, but you're happily apart. So we have those kind of situations. But then you get the family who's all bent out of shape because, he abandoned her. He hasn't been around for whatever number of years. Well, that might be the case, but they never got the divorce. There's no paper that says we're not giving anything to each other. So we sometimes have to live with that result, that a spouse is a spouse, and we do not disinherit spouses unless there's agreement between the spouses that you be disinherited. So, but back to maybe we got good spouses, cooperative spouses, but we really need the backup. So when you come in, generally I'm saying, I don't really need the spouse for being an executive if you guys keep all your money together. You've got joint checking, you've got an investment account together, you own the house together, both names are on the titles to the cars. First one to go off with the zombie, the other one's got everything. They're just running around taking their spouse's name off, right? And in time, no rush, but they're collecting and having it all to them. When that person passes, I now have a situation where I need to do probate, and I need somebody to do that for us. So is that going to be a family member? And again, I challenge people. That family member needs to be somebody who's organized, fair, almost fair to a fault, because if two people are fighting over, the same stapler, right? Who's going to get the stapler, somebody who can make the family come together on these difficult decisions. people fight over the stupidest stuff. It's all on the principle, by the way, all on the principle. So anyway, but you know, somebody's going to keep receipts. You're going to go pay all these debts, and then the brother and sister are saying, "What happened to all mom's money? Where'd it go?" "Well, I had to pay this and I had to pay that." Where? What was it for? Or did you put it in your pocket, or did you go down to Rosie's and enjoy, the gambling? Because we've had that. Now, we try to protect people by having a backup insurance policy, which is what we call a fiduciary bond. It's the same kind of bond that you have when you're working in the bank, right? If you're pocketing the money in the bank has insurance, and then the insurance makes the bank whole and goes after the person stuffing money in their pockets. Well, this is the same thing. They make the estate whole and go after the person who acted badly. But in our wills, we can waive that insurance. So now you're generally chasing after, the bad penny, the guy who doesn't have any money to make right the situation. So I challenge people, is this really the right person? Do you trust this person? Do they have a drinking problem? Do they have a gambling problem? Do they have a wife or husband problem? Sometimes you got a bad spouse, and they're in the ear. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? Why don't you take that? Why don't you keep that for yourself? No. I'm supposed to be doing this for my family, for my siblings. Get out of my picture. But families are what they are. So we want to have a trustworthy person be in charge of the money. Now, they've been doing this job. They've collected the assets, meaning literally gone to the bank. They've closed mom's account, dad's account. They've given them a check for the money. They've opened a new estate account. And now they're going to stop paying the bills, right? And I have everybody come in. "Oh, I don't have any bills." No, okay, good. Glad you don't. But we got a funeral to pay for, okay? Brother should not be driving off in the car, even though mom said he could always have the car, if we don't have other money to bury the poor woman. Okay, so don't be all running off with mom's stuff until we know what's going on with her estate. So we got to take care of a funeral first. And usually, I swear, sometimes people call me and I think mom is dead on the kitchen floor, and they're calling me to say, should I pay her credit card bill? And I'm like, no, call the funeral home, get off the phone with me, or tell brother to come back with the car, because we may need to sell that, because we're not selling a refrigerator and a washer and a dryer to pay for mom's funeral. So we're going to have a funeral. Generally, we're not even thinking about the will until after we've got through the funeral. It takes about a week-ish to get a death certificate, provided there aren't some other circumstances that take longer, like an unattended death or something unknown why the person passed. The doctor doesn't want to certify it. So whatever reason, we don't have a death certificate. But when we get the death certificate, we then send paperwork to the court and say, hey, we need to have an appointment to qualify an individual to be over this estate. Well, our courts, as you well know, our county has grown significantly. And so our court is a little backed up. We have 3 clerks that handle estates. It takes 5 to 6 weeks to get an appointment. So nothing's really happening on mom's estate, my dad's estate, until we can get that appointment. Nobody's in charge. Doesn't mean you can't do anything. You could start sending death certificates to the life insurance company, to retirement, your 401k. You can be sending that to OPM to shut off, if you're a federal employee, which of course a lot of us are or were in this area. So you're sending off, you can be sending off some death certificates. You can be telling the credit card company the person's passed. You can secure the card. You can call Social Security Administration. They do get notified when the death certificate gets created. Also, when the death certificate gets created, voter registration gets notified. So that gets shut off. Sometimes the first letter you get is from voter registration saying it's been canceled. It's kind of unnerving how they know, but they're getting very efficient about it. They work very well with DMV and the Department of Registry. I mean, whatever it is, where all the official records are, vital records, the Registry for Vital Records. So anyways, those things can be happening. But when you get qualified, then you can go to the bank, get the money, and begin to make the plans about what this administration is going to look like. You have reports due to the court on a probate, which are an inventory. That is what is in the account, what was in the estate. When this individual passed, to the penny, what was in the bank, what was in an investment account, what's the car worth, Kelley Blue Book value. And all this, we don't ask one word about debt. This is all about assets, asset values. That's it. That's all we're concerned about. Debts comes later, and hopefully we have enough money to resolve debts. But what are the vehicles worth? What's the house worth? For purposes of probate, we use the county developed tax assessment number, or the town of Dumfries, if they do their own assessment. We use that number, tax assessed value. We don't use Zillow. We don't use Redfin. We use that number, which is fine, unless your house is significantly undervalued as compared to the tax assessed value. Then you might want to get an appraiser or get an official document to tell you what the value is. But generally, the tax assessed value is pretty good. So we put those numbers down on our inventory. We pay fees based on that. We pay taxes based on that number. The tax for probate that you pay the state of Virginia is $1 per thousand. This is the same tax rate that you pay for buying and selling real estate, okay, which is called the grantor tax. So this is 1%, what did I tell you? $1 per thousand. That's the tax rate, okay? So if you've got a $1 million home, God bless you if you do, your tax is going to be $1,000, okay? If you have a $500,000 home, tax you'll pay $500, okay? So, well, TAX is a bad word. This is the best tax you'd ever pay, okay? $1 per thousand. This is not like the 12% you pay on your, or 25% you pay on your salary. This is $1 per thousand. So you paid tax, you filed an inventory, you told the court what you have for value. Okay, we're going to get there. Is it possible to make preparations? Absolutely. And then you're going to pay the bills. That funeral is going to get reimbursed. The person who's doing the job is going to get paid for doing the job of being an executor. You're going to pay the person's last personal property tax. You might have to file a tax return for the estate. What else you got? Utilities and expenses associated with the home until you get it sold or however the home's going to go. And then you're going to give whatever's left over to the beneficiaries. They are going to give you a receipt. We got everything. We agree. Those were the right expenses. We got our money. Thank you very much. The estate can be closed. We filed the paperwork. The $1 per thousand is the probate tax. Somebody posted a question. It's $1 per thousand. If you step foot in the courthouse to open a probate administration, meaning an executor is going to get appointed, you are going to pay $1 per thousand on what you claim is the value of the person's estate who passed away. And that would be values of bank accounts, investments, stuff, significant personal property like vehicles, and the real estate. Okay. It does not include your retirement, like 401ks. It does not include life insurance. Life insurance should not be paid to the estate unless that's all you got. If you got no family and you want to add it to the estate, I'd even say, you know what, why don't you make charities as your beneficiary instead of paying it to the estate, losing $1 per thousand on that and grossing up the estate. But anyway, those things we could talk about. All right, so that's probate. That's a court administration. There are some families who need to do probate, okay? If you have that child who is going to tell their siblings that notebook is not green, but that notebook is blue, and they're going to fight you on everything, then you want to have probate. You want to say, you know what, we'll suffer the costs because that person is going to make it impossible. They're going to make it difficult for their sibling. And by saying you're going to do probate, you get to always say, I have the protection of the robe, meaning I have the court behind me. I'm doing what the court told me I have to do. So you're saying one thing, but I'm being told by the court I have to do this, and I'm doing it this way, the way the court told me. And if you don't like it, you can go ask the court yourself. Okay. When everybody says, oh, you know what, they're going to challenge my will, they're going to challenge, they're going to fight it, they're going to contest it. I say, fine, let them contest it. There are not a lot of ways to contest a will. Okay. One is the person had to have been duped. Okay. They had to have, like, somebody is always in their ear saying, Andrea's dead. Don't give her anything. Your daughter died. Don't leave her anything. No, you haven't talked to her in a long time. Blah, 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 right? Meantime, I'm alive and well over here, but not talking to my mother or whatever. But somebody faked her out and told her that I'm not alive anymore, and she left me out. Okay. Well, that's fraud. All right. And that's a mistake. She had been mistakenly told something about me. Now you can imagine that used to happen when people used to have to write letters. They didn't have phones, but that's not the case now, right? When people took mail by pony, that's what I'm kind of talking about, right? Or it came over on ships. So way back when. Now, the other reason we can challenge a will, or the other is that the person didn't understand what they were doing. They no longer had the capacity, okay, to do what they were doing. And so Andrew was telling him, this is what you want to do. You want to leave it all to me. I'll take care of my brothers. No problem. I'll do it, right? But then I don't. I just take everything because Mom wanted it that way. Mom told me that's what she wanted, right? Well, if Mom didn't have capacity, then we're going to have a will contest. But guess what? If Mom had one little window of understanding, and that was at the time she was signing this, and she told the witnesses and the notary, I know what I'm doing. This is my will. This is my intentions. We're not getting anywhere. Okay. So it's hard to prove fraud, that somebody was in your ear, unless there's some writing or something on it, or that Mom didn't have the capacity at the time they wrote it. Now, it'd be one thing, though, if Mom handwrote her will. I keep picking on moms. I should pick on dads for a minute. Dad handwrote his will, and that's not Dad's handwriting. Well, then that's not a valid will. And we got handwriting experts can testify to that. I got nice handwriting experts, but I have other people who say handwriting experts is junk science. Be what it is. But whatever we're doing costs money. Okay? So if your family member wants to say, I'm going to challenge this will, you can tell them, go ahead. You can even go talk to Andrea about filing a lawsuit about it, right? And Andrea will tell you that a case of this kind, a one-day trial, could cost you about $25,000. Well, usually the person who wants to contest it doesn't have the $25,000 that they're going to have to take out of their pocket to challenge it, okay? And I'm not kidding when I tell you, I just had a guardianship case, and it cost each side, 2-day trial, $50,000 each side, $100,000 to fight over Mom. All right. So we're serious about these costs, and so usually people don't show up to contest wills because they haven't got the money. So they don't want to spend it out of this because they think the estate's going to give them back the money. Well, no. If they lose, they're not getting the money back. If they win, judge might say, okay, you can reimburse your fees before you take the other money, give the other money away. All right. So I'm not real worried about contesting a will unless the person really doesn't have capacity and shouldn't have been doing that, and we have witnesses to it, but generally it's not happening. Okay. Ways to avoid probate. Number one way is beneficiaries. You thought I was going to say trust, but it's beneficiaries. We have 3 ways to say that. Okay. One way is called pay on death. Some of you may have heard of that. Pay on death. That's your bank. That's your cash. Okay. Banks put pay on death on accounts. Sometimes I see people's checks and it says pay on death. Why would you put that on your check? Pay on death to my daughter. That's dumb. I think that's dumb. But I don't know. Maybe the bank printed those checks. So pay on death. Now, I'll go through the 3 things. Then we're going to come back to the pros and cons. The other way to avoid it is beneficiary. Now, if you have a beneficiary, that's typically on life insurance, retirement accounts, investment accounts. Okay, beneficiary. Sometimes the banks call it beneficiary. Again, these mean the same thing. I'm telling you 3 ways to say the same thing. Pay on death, beneficiaries. The third thing is something you may not have heard of before, and that's called transfer on death. And transfer on death is telling somebody, I'm giving you the actual thing, okay? I'm giving you the stapler, transferring the stapler to you on death, right? Playing with office supplies here. Or I'm giving you my phone, right? Most expensive thing I own, right? My phone. But, oh, it's the thing I have the most in my hand. The transfer on death is giving the actual thing. So we used to transfer on death stock certificates. Now they're in, CompuShare or a computer. I can't even remember the names of them, but they're within, they're sort of online in a company that doesn't manage or manages it, but non-certificated anymore. They still call it transfer on death because you're actually transferring the actual share to somebody, the 1 unit ownership in a company. Okay, transfer on death. Transfer on death for a vehicle. You can transfer on death your vehicle. Okay, everybody has a truck. Nobody ever gets rid of their trucks because somebody in the family always says, don't get rid of your truck, Dad. Give me your truck, right? So you might want to do a transfer on death of your vehicle to a family member. Transfer on death your house. You can transfer your house to somebody. Now, best way, I would think the most significant thing to do is if you were going to make an uneven distribution, right? You're going to give your daughter who's lived with you her whole life and has taken care of you, you're going to give her the house. And you're going to give money maybe to her brothers or the other family members. A deed to transfer on death is perfect for that scenario. Okay. It takes the real estate out of the estate because when mom and dad are gone, the last breath that's brought, last one to breathe, the house is daughters. And we're not talking about it being an estate. So these things that I'm talking to you about, pay on death, beneficiary, transfer on death, they supersede your will. They take the asset out of your estate and give it to whom you said. So, of course, we want you to give it to who you want to give it to, okay? Do not give it to your sister thinking that she's going to take care of your kids, okay? Because sister's going to keep the money and tell your kids, I don't know why your parents didn't love you. They gave me this account. They didn't give it to you, okay? Give it to who you want to give it to. Don't give it to somebody else thinking they're going to get it there for you, okay? Because it's not enforceable. If I give it to sister, it's gone to sister, okay? And hopefully she's upstanding and does what you wanted, but you could have just done it to your kids instead. Okay, so these things supersede your estate, so they're really good at giving these things right, and then they can go right away. As soon as they get a death certificate, they can walk into the bank and take the money. So they're fretting about paying for the funeral, but they know as soon as they get that death certificate, they can go over to Truist and close out the bank account and have that money back to them, right? The transfer on death, we just got to do a little paperwork to tell the court that that's what's happened. The house has gone to sister or to whomever, beneficiary. As soon as you get the death certificate, to the entity holding the asset, like an investment company, your Fidelities, your Vanguards, etc., they're going to pay the money to that person. How do you want it? You want a check or you want to open an account with us? We'll just roll it right over into your account. Okay? So these are very efficient, very cost effective because they're pay on death and beneficiary, that's free. There's no cost. Deed to transfer on death, I can do in my office for not a lot of money, like $150. And the big issue with the deed to transfer on death has to be filed before you die. Okay, I had somebody come and I did one for them, and she said she would get it filed. And then after her mother died, she called and said, what do I do with this deed? I said, you said you were getting it filed before your mother died. What a waste. It's too late. She was really pissed. But the reality was she was an only child. So it didn't matter. She was getting the house anyways. And so she just had to do a little bit with probate. She was a little, her nose was out of whack. So I try never to leave deeds with people anymore because they have to get filed before the person dies. So those are very good, efficient things. The other one is, oh, I have a downside to what I've just told you. Okay. Let's say you got 3 kids, good kids. You got $300,000 in the bank. You put them on there, pay on death. They walk into the bank. They walk out with the money. I call it like legalized, armed robbery. You walk in with a death certificate and give me the money. And they give you the money, right? So they got the money. They shove it in their pockets. One of them goes over to mom's house and, oh my God, here's all these bills. Taxes are due, utilities are due, the electric bill, insurance hasn't been paid. So they go out to the other two. Hey, come back in with some money. I got no money. I got no money. No, I got no money. Right? You can that's exactly my mom I did. Okay, I'm the only one who's going to be responsible and take care of mom's debts. But that could happen. They're going to say, I'm not giving you anything. You pay it. Right? You're the one who's you went and looked. It's on you. Okay. So if that might be a situation, you might want to give one kid some money and give the big money out, pay on death. What I'm saying is maybe $50,000. What's it going to cost to run your house for a couple months till it's ready to be sold? The taxes, utilities, insurance, etc. Maybe some, money for paint and carpeting, whatever they need to refresh it and put it on the market, right? Give one kid pay for the funeral, take care of mom's credit card bill, medical bill that might have come in, whatever little things might come through we used to say come through the mail slot. Now we have to hope we can get them offline. But you got the bills, one kid. Now, and then I would tell the parents, tell that kid that if your brother and sister helped you, if you got money left over, share it with them, right? Be generous. But if they didn't pick up one, come by and pick up one chair and carry it over to Goodwill, you know what? I'm keeping all the money because I had to do everything. We're not talking the whole estate. We're just talking a little pot of money that you gave one kid. It shouldn't be enough to piss the family off, right? I never want to create a situation. I often do, because that's what the parents want. But I never want a situation in which, at the end of the day, when the parents are gone, there's no love left between the siblings because of this. Okay? I often say your parents are the glue that keep the family together. And when they're gone, the kids got to make their own glue. Maybe they were good and tight together before mom and dad died. But if they weren't and they don't make the effort, you're going to float off. And that probably wasn't what mom and dad wanted. And we don't want them floating off with bad feelings because you didn't help do one thing and you didn't help do that. I tell people, okay, if you got kids aren't going to lift a finger, I'm going to be able to do that, then just embrace that and say, you're going to get paid for doing the job being an executor. Feel fine with that. And the others, don't expect them to help you in any way. All right. Your brother don't do anything. Now, let me talk to you about executive compensation. Executor. Sorry. The person who's managing the estate. The compensation is very fair. Okay. It starts at 5% of the first 400,000 of the estate. So generally, if they're selling a house in this neighborhood, those houses are, we're getting 5%. So 5% of 400,000 is $20,000. Then they're getting 4% of the next 300,000. So there's 12,000. Then they're getting 3% of the next 300,000. So there's 9,000. Okay. You see these numbers are building up. And those aren't bad numbers. And then it's 2% over $1 million. Okay. That is our estate schedule for reasonable compensation for an executor. You can, in your will, give them more, you can give them less. But if you don't say anything, that's what they're entitled to take without even asking the court's permission. Okay. So they get a nice fee for doing that job. Okay. Now, you don't get the same, and it's a one-time. So the total value of the estate by that schedule. On the other hand, if you're a trustee, that's considered to be a long drawn-out job. So you get 1% of the first $500,000, and you get half a percent. No, 0.75%. Sorry, 0.75 of 1% for the next $500,000, and 0.5% over $1 million. Now that's annual. Okay, if I'm managing money for more than a year, I'm going to take that every year. I also get 5% in the trustee situation. I get 5% from I don't want to, it's not gains, but like the money I find or interest, things like that. So if I've got the money invested and I'm doing good on investing it, I could be getting 5% of that investment, not capital gains, just in like interest, dividends, things like that. Okay. So it can be okay, but if you don't have a large estate, the trustee's not going to get much. All right, for doing a lot of work, like selling the house. Now, but if you're not an executor, you don't get that schedule. You can increase the fee, the schedule for the trust. Okay, trustee. Let's talk about a trust. I just happen to have on my desk a very lovely box. Okay, this is my trust. All right, I'm going to create a box. I'm going to call this box my trust. And in my box, I'm going to put my very valuable stuff. Now, like a gun isn't a great thing, but you can put a gun in your trust. So we'll take the bullet out. But I got my house in there. I got my gambling winnings. And I got all the change that I ever pick up and throw in my box. Whoop, my house fell out of my trust. That's terrible. Okay, so I got my house in my trust. All right. My trust is open. I mean, I have left this open for a reason, because I built this box, but I want to get access to what's in my box. I put my paycheck in there and now I got to pay bills. So I got to take some money out of my trust. And then I got a paycheck and I put it back in and then I pay bills, blah, 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 blah. I am the trustee and I'm reaching in my box and I'm taking out whatever I need to pay my bills, to go on vacation, to do whatever. I don't like that house anymore. I take it out. Now I got a new house and put my new house back in the box. Okay. So I get an extra. I should get more houses. I got to go find my Monopoly and put more houses in my box. Okay. I'll be a little Mr. Moneybags, right? So I got my house, I got all my stuff, my valuable stuff in my box. I need to get the car too for Monopoly and put it in here. I can put my car. So I've got my stuff in my box. It's open. I carry it around with me. If it's husband and wife, two hands are on it. If it's just one person, it's one person. But that person's reaching in and taking out. And you tell me when am I closing the cover on this box? All right. I may be pushing things in this box right when I died, like life insurance or something, and then I'm closing the cover. When my box is open, my box is my social security number, and that number expires with me. When I die, I got to get a new tax ID number for this box, and that's when I'm closing the cover, when I get a new tax ID number. Again, if I have husband and wife, it might be on the second to pass. If it's a blended marriage, it might be on the first spouse to pass, because that spouse who passed ain't having second wife take all the money and not give anything to the kids, or her kids, right? She got to guarantee something for her kids. So we might be closing the cover and telling, Dad, you're going to have to live off, interest from this box. But whatever the conditions are, we've got this box. Okay. So now when I've got a closed box, that's going to do what I said it was going to do. It's going to give money to Johnny. He's going to get monthly income because he can't manage anything. It's going to give it all the money to his sister because she's fine. She can manage her money. She can take care of herself. She doesn't need somebody helping her with her money. It's going to take care of my special needs child. Make sure that they have the extras that the government is not providing for them, that the special needs trust is providing for them. It could be taking care of my grandchild. It could be the college fund for my grandchild. Anything you want. It could be an endowment account. You want to underwrite a scholarship? Do it. You could do it through here, or you could distribute it to the school of your choice. But that's what a trust is. Now, there's a couple things you got to know about this trust. Okay, we used to do these trusts a lot because there was a very low threshold on gift tax. Meaning, threshold is probably not the right word. Anyway, the government said, as far back as 2008, that if you died with more than $1 million, your estate was going to pay a tax of the amounts over the $1 million. Okay, and that tax is 45%. So, right? And it can vary. At some points, it was even higher. So, 45%. is a whop, for that half of whatever's over that amount, that threshold. Okay. That threshold expired in 2010. And when it came back, it was now $5 million. And then it grew. And whatever rate they use to grow that rate, we love it. Okay. Because it is going, going, going. That grew up to, I don't know, it was like, I forget what it was, knocking on. But anyways, in 2017, 2019, 2019, it got renewed again. And that time it got renewed. No, it must have been 2015 because it's just being renewed now. It went up to 10 million. Today, the exemption of monies that you can gift to your family, meaning if you are below this number, you do not pay the government any tax. Okay. That number today is $13.9 million. I hope everyone on your call here is knocking at the ceiling of $13.9 million and not paying tax. But chances are you're not, but you're happy not to pay tax. My understanding, so this was to be renewed, and the opportunity, of course, with those folks that are, 35 miles down the road, was make it higher. So in 2026, if you die in 2026, the exemption is going to be $16 million. Again, we love this inflationary rate. It's going way higher than anything else we're investing in. But so back when it was low, we did a lot of trust because people didn't want to pay money. And by moving something into a trust, you were changing it out of Andrea's individual name into Andrea's trust. Well, and that was like a little business. That's a box over there. That's not me. That's my box. Okay. So I'm not paying tax on what's in my box. I'm only paying tax on what is on my name. Well, now it's 16 million. We don't need it for tax protection. Okay. So when everybody said, well, I don't want to pay tax. I want to avoid tax. Well, you avoid tax by not going into probate, but you also avoid tax by not having $16 million if you were to die in 2026. And again, it's going up. Thanks be to God. So that is a good thing, the tax thing. Now, why else would I do a trust? Well, maybe you don't want people to know what's in your estate. Now, it is public what's in your estate, but you have to make the effort. You have to go to the court and actually look it up, or you have to pay to have access to the records on the internet. Okay. So there's a paywall. So people aren't crawling around in Virginia finding out what's in your estate. They could go to the courthouse and, look through the records, but they're not finding it just on the internet. Okay. Now, but maybe you have a lot of these, or things that hold these, which unfortunately in our community, we do have a lot of these. I think unfortunately. For the people who have them, they don't think unfortunately. But some people don't want it to be known that their kids are going to inherit a small arsenal. Some people don't want it to be known who their family members are or who their beneficiaries are. So there's a degree of privacy that can be had in having a trust. It does not go to the courthouse. It is private. So we can avoid tax. We're avoiding it anyways. We can avoid, we're avoiding the $1 per thousand, where we can have some privacy. Those aren't always the biggest pressing issues that people have, because I can do that same privacy by doing pay on death, right? Nobody knows I had an account at Truist or Wells Fargo or whatever. By the way, don't die with your money in Wells Fargo or Bank of America or any of the big banks. They're a pain in the neck to deal with. That was just my small editorial comment. Local banks are easy to deal with. Credit unions are great to deal with. Credit unions are not great, though, on powers of attorney. So it's a give and take. Some are better than others. And if you want to know who, you can ask. Navy Fed, little hard on powers of attorney. Okay, back to trusts. So I can do pay on death and have the same privacy that I'm having with the trust. The guns, I mean, even if I wrote a letter and said I give all my guns to Derrick, Derrick's got to go. He still has to go to meet federal law. He's going to have to go to the gun store turn them in, and have them redistributed with them. So there is now becoming a registration process for guns. Okay? I have never owned a gun, but you would not believe how many guns I have sold in the States. I think everybody in the state of Virginia has a copy of my license. That's how often I have to go places and give my license, doing administration. So I just, God willing, people are kind to me and don't steal from me. But I got to go to the gun store, and it looks like Andrea's always selling guns. I got a closet with 5 of them. I got to go sell. I just didn't have time to go up there. But there's a registration. So, maybe the trust is going to get you around that. Not necessarily. Okay, because of this new registry. Now, and if you want to send a gun to another state, you're going to take it to the gun store. They're going to ship it to a gun store at the other end. That person's going to come in, do the paperwork they need to do to walk out with their gun. No more just throwing it in the back of your car and driving up, to New York. No, you got to go through this to properly transfer it. What about, and I could give property with the transfer on death, and I can do beneficiaries. Do I need a trust? When do I need a trust? Blended families are a good case, okay? If you need to do some arrangements, you've got your kids, I've got my kids, we have our kids, right? This kid in the middle, both of us are their parent. These kids over here, they got another parent. Might be a deadbeat, but they got another parent. These kids over here, they have another parent, right? But so we might be making different arrangements on how to benefit these children. So blended families, and also leaving something to kids, because now you got that second marriage. I'll tell you, the best thing for a second marriage and protecting your kids is a prenup. Let's be honest. Do a prenup. You got your stuff, I got my stuff. What we commit to bring together, we bring together, and we leave our stuff to our families. Be honest and upfront about it, right? If you haven't done it at prenup, you can always do a postnup. Okay? You're not out of just because you went and got married doesn't mean you can't do an agreement to how to handle your estates. You can also agree that you're going to keep that asset and it's going to go to your family, and I'm not going to make a claim against it. Okay, because again, I told you, we never disinherit spouses. We don't disinherit minor children either. We take care of them. So I've got the blended family. I've got, kids with disabilities or kids who can't manage money. All right. We always got that kid who, finds a dime and thinks they have $1. They never seem to have the money they need for what they want to buy or what they want to do. We need to maybe protect them against themselves. So we've got that. Dementia. Okay. Dementia is unfortunately a problem in our lives. The problem also is, remember, I've got a husband and wife. One of them may have dementia. The other one has all the stress, right? They're the caregiver. They're the spouse. They're taking care of everything. Guess what? Caregiving spouses die. If you're over 70, I think it's like 70% chance that you will predecease the one with dementia because of the stress of being the caregiver and taking on all the responsibility. Okay. So there is a chance, unfortunately, that we will have an individual with dementia inheriting all the assets of the marriage, right? They now own a house. They have a retirement account from their spouse. They have, good government income and pensions, Social Security, investments, vehicles that they're never going to be able to drive. A trustee in that situation can be very helpful. Some part they can be working side by side with the other parent on getting in place to take over. Now, mind you, a power of attorney can do all of that too, but a trust can be more flexible and can jump into the situation quicker. Somebody dies and we don't have, the new trustee comes in. I write up a piece of paper that says, you're now the trustee. In my office, I write you up a piece of paper and you leave with your authority to go around and do everything. Okay. Your power of attorney, you have an option. You can make your power of attorney not be effective until you're Lulu. Okay. So the doctor says she can no longer manage her affairs. So I cannot do anything until I get you to the doctor. And guess what? People with dementia, they don't think they have dementia. They're not going to the doctor. I'm not sick. Why do I got to go to the doctor? Right. So, and then doctors say, well, I got to see the person before I can do this. And then sometimes they don't even want to write the letter for you. And honestly, it doesn't have to be a HIPAA violation. You just have to say that person can't manage their affairs. So you can get there with a trust. Now, people also say, well, doesn't a trust get me faster through it? Because probate can take a bit of time because you got to do these reports. All those binders are probates, by the way. Probates, or they're minors whose money's I'm managing. This side is litigation, but the other sides are all estate or powers of attorney. I'm power of attorney for people, and those are up there. So, and more binders everywhere, my office. Anyway, so because that's what I do. I love paper. You have to love paper to do this job. And they want everything in paper. Fairfax has moved to paperless. You can file your reports to the court paperless, but we haven't done that in Prince William. Time-wise, first off, if you do probate, the court doesn't want you to finish it within a year. They actually want you to go longer than a year. And that is because a creditor has 1 year to bring claims against your estate. If you close out the estate and a creditor didn't find out about it, or they, and it's under a year, you as the executor are personally liable for that expense. So you might want to hold on for a little bit longer and make sure that period gets extended, covers it. Now, because there's that 1 year period of claim, if you sell the house in short of a year, the title company is going to tell you have two options. One is we hold the proceeds in escrow until the year expires. And that way, if a creditor comes forward, the house proceeds can be used to pay the creditor. Or you buy an insurance policy that if a creditor comes through, they are going to, the insurance policy will pay that debt. So you could pay the insurance, which isn't expensive, and then get the proceeds, or you can let them hold the money for a year. And I have an estate here that has a lot, and one of them said, we're not going to give you the money till a year. It's okay, fine. I got other monies. I can wait. It's not that long. Now, do you think a trust can wrap you up sooner? No. You're going to have the same problem with a trust. If you sell the house, they're going to want to escrow the money, or you put up the insurance. Also, there is a 1 year period in which somebody can challenge the trust. So now you can abbreviate that by giving everybody a copy of the trust and telling them, you need to get back to me if you have any problem with this trust. If you have any issues, you got to get back to me. And then you need to communicate with them. You need to send them accountings of what you're doing. Here's where the money went. Here's what I got, etc. So there are pros and cons on both sides. The other thing, I didn't mention enough. When you got your trust and we close the cover, this now has its own tax ID number. We get a new tax ID number for this. This has to file a tax return, okay? Your estate may need to file a tax return if it had income of more than $600. This has to file a tax return regardless of how much income it had, okay? So you might have an estate, everything got closed up quickly, so it didn't have any interest or income, dividends, etc. I didn't have to pay any, it was under $600. I'm not going to file the tax return. This one, you still have to file it whether you have to pay tax or have anything to report. Okay. So that's one con about it. What else? And the person's last tax return. You need to file that. All right. I think there's been a question. Is there a way to see a question?
Yeah, I wrote a question asking when you were talking about everything has to be in paper. Can once they put everything in paper, can they notarize it and then scan it in and keep a digital library?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yes. Every time I do an accounting, so we put together these accountings. I wish I had some to show you. We literally, it was a lot of accountings. The person was very delinquent. So it was like 7 accountings. It was a banker's box. Okay. I mean, sometimes accountings are like this big. Like some of that stuff behind me on the floor is accountings, and it's thick because you've got a year's worth of bank statements, receipts, copies of checks, copies of canceled checks, not the checks you wrote when they went through the bank. You've got all the, checks of money that came into the estate. You've got the payments you made, the documentation to support that. You may have the HUD-1 from the sale of the house. You've got all kinds of stuff. And investment statements, they're 12 pages each, and you got a year's worth of those. So you got a nice thick stack of stuff that you're filing as part of an accounting. Okay. And they'd have the same on the side of the trust yes, one of the things is I can make a copy of all that, and I could put it in Dropbox and tell all the beneficiaries, you can go look at the accounting. And if you want to see the support documentation, like, what I sold the house for and what the expenses were by, if you want to run down the HUD-1, go look at them. You're entitled to it. You should know where the money went. But all that big stack of paperwork goes to the clerk, to the special commissioner of accounts, we call them. They are attorneys who work on behalf of the court in administering probates and other things, trusts that come under the jurisdiction of the courts, etc. So they do, and if somebody goes under guardianship and conservatorship, they get those reports. Same deal, a year's worth of stuff. So they go through all that and they audit it. They have a summary. We put a summary sheet on the top. We put spreadsheets showing the detail. Here's, 12 cents interest in January, 14 cents in February. Actually, it should be less because there's fewer days in the month. But anyway, we have all that stuff detailed. It does take a bit of time. I wish I could show you one.
And then I think some other questions you might have answered. Is it possible to make preparations to avoid probate? I think you touched on that already.
Oh, that's your beneficiaries, your pay on death, your transfer on death, using the trust. Did I go through all the reasons why I might have a trust? Oh, minor children. So children not only that are spendthrifts, can't keep their money, but also minor children. If you have to provide for minor children, a trust can be efficient that way. Now, if you didn't want to do a trust now, if you didn't want to make this standalone box right now, like this, you can get this same box in your will. Okay. I can write in your will that if at the time I pass and my spouse is not here and my child is under the age of 30, I want that child's money to go into a trust to be held for them to do X, Y, and Z, and they get it at this age. That's called a testamentary trust. This is called a living trust or a revocable living trust. We use all these terms, but
So if you die without a trust and you got it in the will, your proceeds can go to start up a trust for whoever's going to get it. You can give the trust instructions in your will for how they can access and do all
exactly.
That. Wow.
So if you want to roll the dice and say, I'm not going to die before my kid is 18 or 20 or 30, then I'm going to, I'll do it in the trust. I'll do it in the will. I'll say, set up that trust in case my numbers come up short and they're going to have to manage that, take that money and manage it till later. I can do that. Now, the thing is, this one is not under court supervision. The one in the will continues to be under court supervision. Okay. Yeah. If you do nothing, okay. And we have a big problem with this. Okay. I'll tell you where it comes up the most. One is grandma leaves money to the grandchild who's a minor, or mom and dad divorce and one of the spouses dies, having life insurance, 401ks at work, a house, a vehicle, and all that now is going to go to their minor child. Okay. That's another case where I have to come in. So the courts don't like to appoint the parent. The parent has to have like a high credit score, have, an impeccable job, because the problem is you got to get that insurance policy. You're going to be managing money on behalf of somebody else, even if it's your kid. I'm mom managing money for my kid, but I got to put up an insurance policy. And the insurance company says, guess who are the biggest defaulters and manage to take money where they're not supposed to take it? Parents managing their kids' money. Okay. I'm short this month. I'm just going to take it out of my kid's account. Well, they never catch up, and it goes and it goes and it goes. We even had a case where the guy fraudulently made bank statements to show the court that the money was still there when it was long gone. And by the time his kid was entitled to it, the guy happened to be dead. and there was no way to get that money back. I think he had gambled it away. And so the insurance company just gave the kid the money, and had to eat it because there was nobody to go after. But parents take their kids' money. Okay. So, and then especially if you got that difficult divorce and you're not in the best situation, it's going to be hard for you to qualify for a bond. So then they want somebody else to do it, like an Andrea. And I come in and I'm managing your kids' money until they're 18. And when they're 18, I am handing them a bank account, an IRA. Maybe we've sold a house. I would have had to go get permission from the court to sell the kid's house. The commissioners of account do not like parents. Well, it's okay if you're managing a house. They don't like if there's a mortgage, that the kid's money is being used for a mortgage. They want it sold. They want it rented down so you don't have any, self-dealing problems. Anyway. That's good. Planning for minor children is very important. If you're going to name a minor on it to be a beneficiary of something, like your 401k, like your or your IRA or your life insurance at work or whatever it is, name a custodian. Okay? If you name a custodian for your child, so you name Andrea to serve as custodian for Derrick. Derrick's going to get it at 18, but I'm going to be the custodian. I'm not going to be under the supervision of the court. I'm going to put that in an investment account and give it to Derrick when he turns 18, which is like next year, So we have ways around that too. And again, that person has to be trustworthy but I'm naming that person as custodian. They have a title. That's not me, Andrea. You didn't give me the money, and then I'm supposed to show up when that kid's 18 and hand him a check. You gave it to me as custodian to manage on their behalf. So hopefully there's some protections there.
Oh,
what other questions?
Got about 14 minutes left. So if you got questions now, put your questions in the comments so we can get your questions answered. You take advantage of this time, but remember, there's no dumb questions. Put your questions in the box.
There's no dumb questions.
Yeah.
My problem.
I think the biggest thing. Go over again the 3 types of power of attorneys. You talked about people need the 3 types of power.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, powers of attorney are incredibly flexible, and they can be very powerful. Okay. When I talk power, I'm talking like a delegation of authority to somebody. They have now the power to do this on my behalf. But I'm also talking that they're powerful. You can have limited powers of attorney. I can give Derrick my limited power of attorney to sell my house. I've already moved to my new state. He's going to sell my house for me, right? So he's got the one little job to sell my house, and I'm going to get the proceeds. He's not going to get the proceeds. He's just doing all the paperwork. Thankfully I have a shortish name. I don't have to write long, but then you got to write by Derrick as power of attorney. It takes forever. So I can appoint somebody for that. I can appoint them for any little function. Okay. But I can also give them what we call a general power of attorney. And that's everything. That's you can do what I can do. So if I can go to the bank and open an account, I can go on as power of attorney and open a bank account. I can go and talk to your retirement account, your investment account, your whatever you're doing financially. I can do that for you. Okay. That's on the financial side. On the medical side, I could be the person making decisions about when you go in a nursing home or in this independent living or assisted living. I could be making decisions about when you go to the hospital, what kind of treatment you get at the hospital as a medical power of attorney. Okay. So there's that. There's other powers of attorney too. I could give somebody a power of attorney to take care of my funeral. Now, technically, powers of attorney die with you. When you die, they're done. But the funeral industry went to the legislators in Virginia because Fairfax National or whatever that funeral home is in near George Mason, there's a lawyer in their family and an undertaker, and he got the funeral people to say, we need a power of attorney for that little time after they die to make arrangements. So I can cremate somebody, I can bury somebody, I can buy, I can buy an urn and whatever else. I can say that's the person, push the button. So we can have that. I could give somebody a power of attorney to take care of my dog. I can give a power of attorney to take care of my kid. I can, it can be for a long period of time or it could be one day. You're going to the fair with my kid or you're going to the beach with my kid. They get a sunburn, take them to urgent care, come back, give me my power of attorney or the babysitter. I mean, we can do a lot with the power of attorney. All right. So what else?
Somebody said, thank you. Great information. You briefly mentioned beneficiary transfer on death. How can we write up transfer of death for personal property like a truck and real estate?
Okay, so personal property, you can go on the Virginia DMV and you can look up beneficiary. Okay, and they have a form. I'm not telling you necessarily to do the form, but to know that there's this form. Grab the form number. I don't have it in front of me. It's in my package when I give to everybody. It's a title change, so you got to go into DMV. Okay, but there's a form, and I encourage you to just look up beneficiary in the DMV, in their forms, and then you can also see what you need to bring for information. That would add the person to the title. You're going to go into the service center and have it added. By the way, DMV also has a form in which you can put emergency contacts in your driver's license record. Okay? This is important. If you're a single individual in our area, I highly recommend you do this. Okay? Who do you want to be called in the event that police have your driver's license and they're putting you into an ambulance to go to the hospital, whether you got faint at Walmart or you were in a fender bender, okay, or they find you in your car heat prostrate, whatever. They get your license, they see your contacts. It is so efficient. People are meeting people at the emergency room waiting for the ambulance to arrive. Okay, that's how nice and clear it is. Okay, I'm almost apoplectic. Nobody should get out of driver's ed without doing this. Okay. Every kid should be doing this, having their parents' information on their license. So go on DMV and look up emergency contacts. You will find the form. You can do it in DMV now. You can print off the form and mail it to DMV, and they will enter the information for you. I think it's very important. I've had police say to me, we didn't know how. We got people, we see it. We got other people, we don't know how it got on there. They were so happy to know. Also, by the way, and whoever I can send this to, I will. Prince William County, our clerk, Jacqueline Smith, has now created an alert system for property records. Okay, we got everybody who's worried because they listen to Fox too much. But anyway, they're worried that the house is going to get stolen. And we know it does happen, unfortunately. Thankfully, not around here. But you can go on this QR code or go to the princewilliam.va.publicsearch.us. It's a long thing. But I'll send this to somebody who can share it around with everybody.
You're going to give it to the voice of God.
What's that?
You're going to give it to the voice of God and they're going to get it out to everybody.
Yeah, voice of God is going to get it out to everybody. Anyways, you register, you put in an email address, text, I'm not even sure, I have to do it myself. You'll get notified if anybody tries to do anything on your home property record or rental or whatever. Now, there are good things that get reported on your record, like satisfaction of your mortgage. Okay? You want to know that's been recorded. You want to know if somebody who came and did some work at your house and then said you didn't pay them, and now they put a mechanic's lien on your house, you want to know about that and get right on it and address that and get that off your record. And you want to know if somebody's trying to sell your house. Okay? So this is a nice thing to do. Emergency contacts, very important. Some other things we talk to people about. Also, don't make your estate be a scavenger hunt, right? Leave information. What banks are you using? What's your CRS number if you're a government employee? So they can shut off your OPM if you stop your checks coming so you don't have to refund the government. Your social security number, your birth date, who are your parents. Unfortunately, when people die in our community and nobody knows who their family is, the sheriff takes custody of your body, okay? And then the sheriff tries to find out. So like, Miller Funeral Home will call and say, we've got an unclaimed body here, right? Came from the hospital to us, or it's at the hospital. And then the sheriff tries to find out who's the family, and they use all their search techniques. And then they come to Andrea because I'm like a little sleuth. I find the family. Now, it cracks up the sheriff because I'll be like, I went back to the grandparents and like, the grandparents, they must be dead. And I'm like, of course the grandparents are dead, but the grandparents had other kids. And now those kids have cousins, and that's who we got to find. Your estate does not default to the state of Virginia. We have to go back to your grandparent level to find out who your relatives are. So you have to be the only child of two parents who are only children, of grandparents who are only children. I mean, you really have to not have anybody. We try to find even the distant heirs. So when the body goes to the sheriff and the sheriff goes to court and gets permission to cremate the body, if they can't find any family member that wants to take responsibility, and the money comes to Andrea, I go out and do their estates. I have no clue who you are. I am going through your house. I am trying to find a birth certificate. I am trying to find photo albums with pictures of your family. I can't unlock your phone. I might not be able to unlock your computer. I'm literally doing a scavenger hunt. And it's getting harder and harder because more and more information is now online. I do not know if you have Columbia Gas or Dominion Power or Novak. I do not know, who your bills are until I get a bank statement. But then again, I don't know where your bank is. I got to see if you got a checkbook. The next generation doesn't even have checkbooks. They have debit cards. So now I got a debit card. Maybe you got money there. I'm looking for titles to vehicles. I'm trying to see if you have a safe deposit box. Do you have an IRA? Again, stuff. Where's your tax returns? A lot of this is done online, and I can't get online to find it. Your estate may be this, a bag with a social security card and some couple bills, because I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So don't make it a scavenger hunt. Leave information.
Got one last question that came in. It says,
okay. Oh, the big banks?
Yeah, why are big banks so hard to deal with and trustees have issues with credit unions?
Okay. Well, just think about it. When I was growing up, I could go to the bank and pretty soon the banker knew me because it was the same person who worked there for 30 years, right? My father once bought a car, and before he paid for it, he drove my brother on a college scouting trip. Okay, he told the guy, the guy at the dealership, when I get back, I'll buy the car. And he gave him the car, and he drove it. Okay, because you knew people, right? Now we don't know anybody. So when you go into Wells Fargo, Bank of America, you're never seeing the same people. They don't get to know you. They don't develop a trust with you that you come in, and then the same problem happens because the people at these big banks aren't empowered. Okay, they don't do anything without sending it to a bunker somewhere, that somebody else is going to review it. I have spent hours sitting in a bank for them to review whether I can get into a safe deposit box to look for a will. Because they're going to go pull up the code for Virginia and they're going to research it and they're going to, I'm not kidding, it takes forever. So I can't be that hard on them because some of them have incorporated good things. For instance, I got appointed to probate. It's an older couple. They only had one daughter. She died before them. They were not expecting to get back everything they gave their daughter. But now, so they asked me to do the administration because meantime, they inherited back the home that they gave to her when they moved out of the area. So I'm doing the administration. I forgot I had put everything into a estate program that Wells Fargo now set up. I went into the bank and they're telling me that account's been closed. I was freaking out. Who closed that account? And then in the mail, I get the check to close out our account. So they do have some systems now where they're more efficient and in helping families with this. I mean, I tell people, technically, you should be able to walk out of the court with a qualification paper and walk into the bank with a death certificate and that paper and get the person's account. But you aren't, because they got to send that paperwork here and there. I'm the power of attorney for a couple, husband and wife, married 50 years. Both of them have now developed dementia. They're now in a facility. I could not get Bank of America for, I don't know how long, almost 6 weeks. First of all, I only got his power of attorney approved. They never accepted hers. They only accepted his. They still wanted me to bring in a medical that said he had dementia, even though the power of attorney was effective immediately. I didn't need to get that. They finally proved me, but she was on all of the accounts anyway, so I'm over both of them. And then it took them over a month to verify me, to put me on their account. So while I was waiting, things were bouncing because I could not get into the savings to move it to the checking, to pay for the nursing home that I just put them in, and all the fees associated with those costs. Plus, I had caregivers in the home taking care of them. So money was flowing out. And I have no problem going and standing in the lobby of a bank and telling them, you have got to fix this problem. It's your problem. You're going to fix it. You're not going to charge me fees. You're going to reimburse my, oh, Miss Morisi, please quiet down. I'm like, no, this is your fault. Why aren't I on that account and know what's going on with it? I cannot wait 1 month to get their bank statement to find out stuff is bouncing. They had been compromised, so their Social Security got shut off. I'm still working to get their Social Security reinstated. Their pension, they reverted to that, sending them a paper check. So I have to take that to the bank to be deposited. I mean, everything, there's 1,000 things going wrong. They have a trust. Guess what? Everything's pay on death to the trust. So until they die, nothing's in the trust except their house. So so there's a ton of stuff that has to be done on this. And I'm doing the scavenger hunt in the house to find, I go around, I sweep up pennies. I put everything in the bank. These people need that money to take care of them. I don't let anything go, right? So you get a check for 13 cents, I put in the bank. They need it. But big banks, it can be difficult. I try really hard to cultivate relationships with banks because I'm in there all the time. And I'm, again, then they go close a branch. The people I cultivate a relationship go elsewhere. I have to go start again. So it's nice when I can go in Wells Fargo and they're like, oh, we saw you made an appointment. I wonder what you're going to do now. I have another thing. I had a guy, I wasn't his guardian. I was working on a case where we were getting a guardian appointed for him. So I was his attorney, appointed by the court. He's in a hospital. His sister is using his account down in Texas. And she is not shy. She is taking out thousands of dollars in the ATM or bank, doing at the counter. She's using the ATM. While we were waiting for Wells Fargo to, I don't know what they were doing. Anyway, we're on hold. We were looking up where she's shopping. And I said, oh, Eskimo Hut. That must be like, Nathan's Dairy, ice cream. No, that is frozen margaritas to go. Okay? So sister is helping herself to thousands of dollars. He's sitting in a hospital. And Wells Fargo will not shut off the power of attorney and cancel her access to the account. I go to the hospital. I say, buddy, you have not been deemed incompetent. You're going to be. But do you want to shut this off? My sister's stealing my money. Yes, she better give me back my money. So I had him do a revocation of his power of attorney. I had a witness. We notarized it. I took it to the bank. They would not accept it. Who are you to him? I'm like, I'm his attorney. You need to shut this off. They wouldn't shut it off. She'll just go back in the bank and reinstate her power of attorney. I'm like, do you not put down notes when somebody's being defrauded? I'm literally screaming across the desk. You're on notice. His sister's stealing his money. I get very indignant. I don't like people being taken advantage of. Sure enough, that guy went into, she stopped. I called her. I told her, she said, that's my account. I said, it's not your account. It's your brother's account. You know it's your brother's account. It's the money you got from your father when he died and you administered the estate and you put the money in that account. That's his money. The bank actually gave me the complete history of the account. As ice cubes are dropping in a glass. I'm like, oh God, there she is, getting her frozen margarita. Anyway, she stopped. But the day after he went into guardianship, she went back in that account and took money out. Anyways.
Wow.
Sometimes the defrauding is very difficult. And that's the other thing, people. Be alert. If you've got family members and they're being secretive, get in their business. Find out what's going on. But I think the biggest problem is the elderly sit home and are lonely. They don't have enough to do. They pick up the phone because they always picked up the phone, and they talk to strangers. And next thing you know, they're giving away their money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of flowing out of good people in our community's accounts because of fraud. Okay. And I don't understand how in the brain they get so in there that even after we've removed them from the circumstances, they still go back and go back and go back. I have dealt with people that are homeless from having given away all their money, and still, as soon as his veteran pay arrives and her Social Security, they are mailing it to scammers wherever. Okay. And so we need to engage people, take them to adult daycare, have people in the home with them so they stop picking up the phone. I don't know what to do, but it is so frustrating and so upsetting.
Listen,
I had a guy who was actually stolen, taken and put in a camper in Culpeper. We couldn't find him. Well, they stole $10,000 a month in his retirement pay. So, it's a good payday.
For your passion and for what you do, for sharing your knowledge with us tonight, and really, helping us to break down how important estate planning is for us in our communities, how important it is for people to start planning, because if they don't have a plan, the state gonna plan for them. Before we close out, can you just share how everyone can connect with you if they want to follow up directly, or they can learn more about your services, because they can clearly see how passionate you are. So if you drop your information in there, and
if I send it to Evan, he'll share.
Yeah, Evan. Yep, Evan.
Yeah. I'm in a law firm called Farrell and Croft. I'm in Old Town Manassas. Please know that it's not just me. I have an associate or a partner named Sherry. She's my clone. So I'm difficult sometimes to get on my calendar because I thankfully have a good, I have a lot of work to do. So if you can't get me, Sherry is going to help you. I have another associate named Kate. We're all helpful for you. I mean, any one of us. Usually how I start the process is you call us for an appointment. I've got wonderful people at the desk. They're going to get some info from you. They're going to send out an intake form, which is like 10 pages, but it's a lot of what we've just gone over. There's our website. And then I do charge a consult fee of $300. And then I have a fee for doing the services for you, like the wills and all that. Now, again, I could easily tell you everybody needs a trust. And let's be honest, I get paid more money if I do more work for you. But I give you what you want, what you need. Okay. If I don't think you need a trust, we're going to talk about that. If you still want to trust, we're going to, let's get into it. But there's a lot of things we can do that if you're concerned about expense, don't be. It's better for you to come and talk to me than to say I can't afford her, right? Come and have the conversation. I have people who come, and in the hour we're here, I can sit at my desk and do a deed to transfer on death if that's all you need, because you want to make sure your daughter gets your house. And then we'll get it recorded and make sure everything's proper. And we'll talk about some other things, and I'll give you other resources. So I'm more concerned that you get what what's best for your family, for you. And then it can be expensive. I'm not the most expensive person. An estate plan for a husband and wife that includes a trust is going to run you $3,000. A will, financial power of attorney, we charge $50 a financial power of attorney. And honestly, if you didn't have that kind of money, well, why do you need one? But because you don't got nothing to deal with. But I'd do it for free if you really needed it.
What about medical power of attorneys and elderly?
It's $50.
Okay, for all, and then for
the deed, $150. Okay. But a whole package is more expensive. If you don't do a trust, it's $2,000. So trust costs you $1,000. Okay, but come in again. Please do not be put off by the cost.
Yep.
Come and talk to us. I'm a partner. I can make my own decisions on what I want to charge. So
we'll talk about getting you there in person to maybe notarize, and we'll try to work out a package deal if everybody completes this and they want to at least do their will and they got a simple will. So we'll talk about that. And listen, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I know we went a little bit over, and we're glad that you stayed. You all are taking another step to your legacy builder's journey. Next week, just a little preview. We're diving into something new. We're moving into for you how to use your insurance policy actually as a bank account. So this is going to be fun and an introduction to life insurance as a tool for building generational wealth. Trust me, you don't want to miss next week. Thank you for your commitment. We'll be back next Wednesday at 6:30.
Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.